on now, Ilya, because if anyone understands the dynamics of what's going on now, I hear it appears, in my opinion, that if you're the president and you have a divided government, in other words, your party is not does not control the Senate, then they're just not going to vote for a Supreme Court justice in that year, regardless of in the last year, regardless of the time, like Barack Obama did it. I guess Merrick Garland came up for nomination in February or something, and of the year of the election. But again, historically, from what I've read and surmise, that since the Republicans controlled the Senate, it wasn't going to happen. And I think Barack Obama tried to make this an issue, knowing that it wasn't going to happen, knowing that he wasn't going to get a vote on the nomination. But it's just to create this kind of chaos, this kind of it's not hypocrisy, but it's constant confusion. It kind of reminds me of Saul Alinsky.
Well, it's politics. It's politics, Charles.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, every time there's been a vacancy in an election year, the president has made a nomination. So there's nothing wrong with Obama doing that. And he picked someone more moderate because he thought that would be the best chance of forcing the hand of the Republicans. But as we know, Mitch McConnell took the gamble because most people were not predicting that Trump would be elected. And so Hillary could have picked someone worse than Garland. But yeah, you're right about the historical statistics. So when there's been a vacancy during a presidential election year, if the same party controls the White House and the Senate, there have been confirmations in 17 of those 19 times. If it's opposite parties, then there's only been once where the Senate of the opposite party has confirmed, and that's in 1888. So just knowing that and not knowing anything else about the circumstances, you would expect that in 4 years ago, when we had a divided government, that there wouldn't be a confirmation.
Right.
And now you would expect that there would be, just based on the raw politics of it.
So, so they're making this hubbub about something that, is a given. And what I don't like is when, and I'm going to play this later. I'm not going to take your time or time from you speaking to play this, but Joe Biden goes up and he just lies about this woman's record and what she stands for. And, is that politics? I mean, how can you see, I came along, Ilya, back when Abe Fortas was appointed. I remember I was in college when Nixon appointed Abe Fortas. And I remember how they treated him. And, I'm still trying to, I'm an undergrad. I'm trying to understand, the intricacies of this appointment and what Nixon was trying to do and what happened to him in the court and what happened to Abe Fortas. But, I'm on a liberal campus, so I'm only getting like one side, from my teachers and professors.
Well, that was actually LBJ. This was 1968.
LBJ. Yeah.
And LBJ was a self-anointed lame duck because of his unpopularity due to the war in Vietnam. And yeah, he tried to, when Earl Warren, the Chief Justice, announced that he was going to retire, he tried to elevate Justice Abe Fortas, who ran into ethical issues and faced bipartisan opposition, didn't even have a majority in the Senate. And that was one of those exceptions where even though the Democrats had a majority in the Senate, LBJ was not able to get his nominee through, and Nixon ended up appointing Warren Burger to be the next Chief Justice.
Yo, that was interesting. And Burger was he and Earl Warren, they were two tough guys. I remember they were interesting guys. But one of the in your book, you kind of touched on this. One of the most interesting nominations that I read about was Brandeis. I didn't realize he was the first. I knew he was the first Jewish appointee, but I didn't realize it happened so long ago, like in 1913 or
1916.
16. Okay.
And this is actually, people ask me, what do I think the most controversial one we've had is, expecting me to choose between Thomas and Bork and now Kavanaugh, but Brandeis is my answer. I mean, first Jewish nominee, but not just that, was a very crusading, progressive, controversial at the time. His nomination came during a presidential election year and took nearly 5 months, the longest of any nomination in our history. Was ultimately confirmed by a margin that was a little broader than some of the more modern ones that we've had the controversies recently. But then, after he was confirmed, another justice, Charles Evans Hughes, resigned to run against Woodrow Wilson in the election campaign, if you can imagine. So that year, 1916, was, if you think 2020 is bad, if you think 2016 was a contentious election, 1916 is right up there.
No question. But they played hardball in those days, man. They did not play around. Those guys, they were tough. I look at this recent nomination, though, and I was thinking about it over the weekend because, some people have their take on RBG, and I have my own take on RBG. I didn't like the fact that she denigrated motherhood and feminism and traditional values and things like that. I could just go right down the line. And I remember Ruth Bader Ginsburg saying that our Constitution was outdated and it needed to be rewritten more like the Constitution of South Africa. So I read the Constitution of South Africa and I'm going, no. And so, but people don't remember those things and they don't talk about them. And Barack Obama said the same thing, by the way, who was an adjunct constitutional instructor or lecturer at the University of Chicago. And people quit taking his class because they said they weren't paying $40,000 a class to listen to someone berate the Constitution and the foundation of the law. So this particular appointee, she embraces motherhood. She embraces traditional values. She says, I love the Constitution. I love America. And those things really rang out to me when she said that Saturday. They were just so so opposite of what I got, what I interpret from Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
I mean, it's assuming Judge Barrett is confirmed, that's going to be the biggest swing we've seen on the court since Clarence Thomas replaced Thurgood Marshall. And that's why a lot of people on the left are up in arms now. The attacks on Barrett, what's interesting is the Democrats are not repeating their mistake from when she was nominated to the Seventh Circuit. Recall the Judiciary Committee hearing where Senator Feinstein said the dogma lives loudly within you, which sounds like a rejected Star Wars line, and others attacked her for her religiosity. That is not going to play well with swing voters in the Midwest that they need for this election. So they've gone to kind of a more generic attack, the same sort of thing that was said about Gorsuch and Kavanaugh, that this nominee would destroy the environment and go against women's rights and workers' rights and all the rest of it. It's pretty generic. It's like those placards in protests outside the Supreme Court that said oppose blank, and then they wrote in Gorsuch or Kavanaugh or whoever it was. I don't think this tactic is going to work because if the Democrats wanted to make a principled point that there should not be a confirmation this close to the election, maybe that argument could be had. But these same sort of generic talking points haven't worked, and it looks like Mitch McConnell has the votes, so we'll see what happens.
Well, I tell you, your book, Supreme Disorder, like I said, I'm busy as a one-armed paper hanger, but I had an opportunity to download a copy on my Kindle, and man, once I started reading it, because I love this stuff, it just, for me, not being an attorney, people always say I should have been an attorney, should have gone into law. But I love law and I love this history and the history that you've presented. It's just incredible, man. I tell you, did a great job on this book. I wish you much success with it. And folks, we're going to repeat the title again. It's called Supreme Disorder. Judicial Nominations and the Politics of America's Highest Court. And the author's name is, and he's here with us right now, is Mr. Ilya Shapiro. If you like, guys, you can call in. Our lines are open. Ilya, I think she's going to be confirmed. I don't think that anything's going to stop her confirmation from going through. And I think that she's going to serve the country well. I think that she's an excellent role model for women. I think she's an excellent role model for all Americans. Because I tell you, Ilya, I don't know about you, and I know that you are a newer citizen. I remember when you got your citizenship, I was just so proud of you. You've just been, in my opinion, just one hell of a great young man and American. But you were.
I like that you keep calling me young, Charles. That's great. Keep it up.
Well, Ilya, you look young. Let me put it that way. But you're one just exceptional person, and you're doing a great job at Cato. But this book, man, what made you write the book? I mean,
well, a couple of years ago, after the Kavanaugh hearings, I wanted to I wanted to write a book about the Supreme Court in some way. And so after the Kavanaugh hearings, I thought, is it always just going to keep going this way? I knew the history of Clarence Thomas and Robert Bork, but where did this start? What role has politics played? And can we do anything about it? And so my book is divided into three parts. The first part is history, from George Washington through LBJ, through that failed Fortas nomination. The second part is the present, basically the modern age from the late 60s through Kavanaugh. And the third part is the future. What can we do anything about it? At the end of the day, I think a lot of reform proposals are rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. The problem's not with the confirmation process, but with the product, with the court being so powerful because the federal government's so powerful. And given the different interpretive theories that have come to map onto partisan preferences at a time when the parties are so ideologically sorted, you can't avoid these legitimate battles whenever there's a vacancy.
Well, it's really interesting, Ilya. You don't know this, but I'm going to share it with you. The Wednesday before RBG passed away, I was doing a show about why she should have accepted Barack Obama's attempt to replace her on the court before he left office. And then it dawned on me, all these things started coming together, that Hillary Clinton was one of her primary supporters with her husband in selecting Ruth Bader Ginsburg for the court. So if Hillary was now president, and, she'd been so influential in getting her appointed to the court in the first, that would have been just one historical hell of a situation going on, right? The first woman president appoints the second, the third woman or fourth woman sitting on the court. I mean, I thought it would have just been a fourth woman sitting on the court. It would have just been a historical, a great thing.
I think that's what Justice Ginsburg was hoping for and counting on, and miscalculated.
Yeah, a little bit. She hung in there. But when they talk about black women for the court, we had a woman here in the same. This is ironic. I'm writing about this in a piece I'm putting together. We had a black woman here named Anne. I should say a justice. I mean, a judge. She was an appellate court judge in the same court as Coney Bates is coming out. Barrett is coming out of. And her name was Ann Williams. And Ann had been an appellate court judge for almost 20 years. And this is the interesting thing, Ilya. She was young enough at the time Barack was making these appointments 10 years ago. She was in her early 50s, maybe. But she's, very vibrant jurist, and Barack knew her well. We all lived in the same neighborhood, and he skipped over her totally. I mean, here was a historic time when a half black president could have appointed a black jurist to the court, and he chose to a female at that, and he chose to overlook her. And I don't know what her political leanings are. I would assume they'd be Democrat. I know her husband well. I know Ann well, but I know her husband better. I was through with him at that point. And I used to say to everyone, regardless of my political differences with Barack, that's the thing that broke the camel's back when he didn't appoint Ann Williams to the bench. And ironically, this woman comes, she's only been on that bench for what, 3 years, and she's appointed to the Supreme Court. I love it. Don't get me wrong. I'm gratified that she's appointed. I think she's going to do a great job too.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of those what ifs in our history. The court would look a lot different if Edith Jones had been picked instead of David Souter under George H.W. Bush, or if Mike Blutig had been picked instead of John Roberts by George W. Bush in 2005. A lot of, or for that matter, as I detail in my book, if Scalia, who was confirmed unanimously in 1986 when the Republicans held the Senate, had switched with Bork. If Bork had gone first in 86 and then Scalia in 87, I think they both would have gone through, and the history of the court, the history of the country would have been different these last 30 years.
Someone who I communicate with off and on is Jenny, Clarence Thomas's wife. And it's always interesting to me that when Justice Scalia would talk about his decisions and how he made his decisions, you know what he always said? I conferred with Justice Thomas because I consider his opinion so highly. But I keep going, and Clarence doesn't say much, and he steadily, when I read his opinions, when you read the opinions when you read the synopsis or summations of his opinions by people who said, well, Clarence Thomas said he doesn't favor busing because, when he was talking about that busing issue and children being bused, he was saying that you don't have to go to a white school in order to go to a good school. Your school in your neighborhood should be a good school. You shouldn't have to be bused out of your community to another community, a racially ethnic community to get a good education. And I believe in that 110%. And I think most people do. But that's not what came out in the media. It's like Clarence Thomas does not want black children to go to school with white children, and he's against integration and But anyway,
yeah,
Ilya, I know that you've been busy and you probably have a sore voice, a sore throat. But let me give you a little hint as you continue to talk, because you've been doing this all your life. But when my voice starts to go, I swallow whole honey, not dissolved in tea or anything. I just swallow a tablespoon of honey on my throat and let those cords heal.
Okay.
Because you've been
thanks for that, Charles.
You've been going at it hot and heavy.
I have to actually get going to my next thing now.
Okay. I know you do. Hey, thanks again, Ilya. Thanks for taking the time to come on. I appreciate you, man.
Sure. And if your listeners go to supremedisorder.com, they can actually not just buy the book, but download for free an appendix of statistics and historical tidbits to really dive into this stuff.
Well, that's where I'm going to go next. Thank you so much, Ilya.
All right.
Take
care.
You too. Bye-bye. Ilya Shapiro from Cato Institute. Okay, folks. That was something. I enjoyed that. Enjoyed Ilya. He's a great young man. And he and I go back a long way. I'm going to play something for you that I did win a couple of days ago. Well, a couple of weeks ago, actually. A friend of mine asked me to do this as a soundbite for him, and I did. And I hope you like it. I'm going to play it right now. Here we go. Oops. Nope. It was, I'm going to play it for you. It is, here we go. Let's see if we can pull it up. Hello. Man, I tell you, that's why I need here we go. And 2, 3, 4, 5. Ezekiel 25:17. The path of the righteous man is beset on all sides by the inequities of selfish and the tyranny of evil men. Blessed is he who in the name of charity and goodwill shepherd the weak through the valley of darkness. For he is truly his brother's keeper and the finder of lost children. And I will strike down upon thee with great vengeance and furious anger those who attempt to poison and destroy my brothers. And you will know my name is the Lord when I lay my vengeance upon thee. Wow. For those of you who are, what do you call it? Well, if you follow movies, that's from what was the name of that damn movie? Samuel Jackson, and he was in this movie. I can't come up with the name of the movie right now. With Bruce Willis, I just drew a real blank. I'm doing what Joe Biden's gonna do tomorrow. I'm doing what Joe Biden's gonna do tomorrow. Okay. Oh man. Yeah, Bruce Willis played a boxer named Butch, and that's my nickname. And that book was that the picture was called Pulp Fiction. Pulp Fiction. That was a little reading from Pulp Fiction. One of my little things that I go off into. But this appointment of the Supreme Court justice, it's just too much for me. I think it's the best thing that happened to the country in a long time. Amy Coney Barrett, ACB. That's what we're going to start calling her, ACB. I love this lady. She came on, and I'm sitting there. Everybody's kind of tense. Everybody's kind of watching what is she going to say? How's she going to sound? What does she sound like? What does her voice sound like? So we're all kind of with bated breath and pins and needles, right? And she's just so gracious, and she's just so, in my opinion, perfect for what we're trying to get done, right? And she takes the president introduces her, and she takes the mic, and she's just humble and just sweet. I tell you, the kind of message she gave about her husband and her family. I mean, how could you not love this woman? How could you not support this woman? How could you not say, vote yes for her, regardless of your party, vote yes for her? She was just wonderful. And I'm going to play quickly her opening words after President Trump handed her the mic. Here we go.
I clerked for Justice Scalia more than 20 years ago, but the lessons I learned still resonate. His judicial philosophy is mine too. A judge must apply the law as written. Judges are not policymakers, and they must be resolute in setting aside any policy views they might hold. The president has asked me to become the 9th justice. And as it happens, I'm used to being in a group of 9, my family. But this evening, I also want to acknowledge you, my fellow Americans. If confirmed, I would not assume that role for the sake of those in my own circle, and certainly not for my own sake. I would assume this role to serve you. I would discharge the judicial oath, which requires me to administer justice without respect to persons, do equal right to the poor and rich, and faithfully and impartially discharge my duties under the United States Constitution.
Thank you. Congratulations, Amy.
Wow. Now that is a hell of a introduction, and she was just wonderful, in my opinion. She just nailed it. If you were grading this, I'd give her a 10 of 10. 10 of 10. There's nothing in her background that they can say, but she had 5 babies. So what? She's a mother. There's nothing. I mean, this woman reeks of love, of compassion. And then you're looking at it and you go, okay, love, compassion. Then you realize, oh, she's a brainiac. She's brilliant in law. Okay. I mean, what else do we want? What else do we? I mean, to me, she's the antithesis and the exact opposite of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Ruth Bader Ginsburg hated motherhood. She hated to cook. She hated anything that was tied to traditional values. That includes marriages between a man and a woman. They struck down the Defense of Marriage Act. The Supreme Court did. It was an act. You know, we've had other acts like the Fugitive Slave Act, and, you know, these other acts that were stricken down. But we had a specific act to address a specific problem in this country, an issue in this country. And the people said marriage is between a man and a woman. The Supreme Court, unelected, not representative of the people, who are supposed to interpret the law, said, you know what? We think that something's wrong with that. The people don't understand that other people have different. Hey, marriage is between a man and a woman. That's what the American people said. They didn't ask the Supreme Court to overrule them. The Supreme Court doesn't represent the people. The Supreme Court is supposed to do one thing and one thing only: interpret the law. If the law is flawed as it relates to the Constitution, so be it. But remember, when we start talking about these, do anything that you want, if you feel it, it's good. If it's done in love, like pedophilia, it's supposed to be good. No. John Adams said that the Constitution was written for only a moral and religious people. Without being moral or religious, human passions, unbridled human passions, tend to run amok. He was absolutely right. So you're free to do anything you want to do. You can have sex with, whatever, that you want to have, I mean, you read some of these posts that you get, or that I get on my phone, and it's ridiculous. It's disgusting. It's ridiculous. And it really hurts when you have children who are caught up in this mess, like having two daddies and two mommies. That's the craziest thing I've ever heard in my life. And the kids come out all jacked up. In fact, I used to have a series of, I don't know what happened to these people, but I used to have a series of young people who be booked on the show who were products of same-sex marriages. They'd been adopted and raised, in these homes with two daddies or two mommies, and they were all messed up and said they didn't want that to happen to any other children. But of course, people ignored them because guess what? They don't have the money and they're not celebrities. Okay, so as with the Principals Union, and this is the principal of the Principals Union of New York, and these people represent roughly 12,000 schools or something like that. They all voted no confidence. No confidence. See, on Friday, this past Friday, the city of New York made an 11th hour switch, allowing teachers instructing remotely to work from home rather than their schools. The Principals Union said it wasn't notified ahead of time about the change. So everything's done last minute. Like last month, the mayor and the chancellor of the schools have twice made, some last minute decisions. And so the principals got together over the weekend. They voted this dude, de Blasio, no confidence. It's a no confidence resolution. And they entered into a grossly irresponsible staffing agreement that failed to promote and proprietize the needs of school children and their families. This Department of Education now, they said they have a shortage of around 12,000 teachers. And in recent days, city officials announced that they had secured a few thousand additional teachers. However, de Blasio declined to say how many teachers were still needed. Amazing. See, and they think that the feds are going to bail them out. They're not. And they shouldn't. Like here in Chicago, this mayor said to President Trump, F you. So now I think the president gets to say the same thing to her, even if it's going to hurt the city a little bit. I just want to drive her out of office. So de Blasio got a vote of no confidence on Sunday, yesterday, by the principals union. And they called on him to relinquish control of the cities to the state. Controls of the schools, of the city schools to the state. Can you imagine that? I mean, de Blasio is the worst mayor. I don't see how this guy, I don't understand how he got elected the first time, but you elect him twice? Hey, first time, shame on me. Second time, shame on you. And that's how I kind of feel about the people of New York. So then he has the teachers, right? The United Federation of Teachers said they'd known about the need for additional staff since last spring. Wow. And the city is one of the few big districts trying to open for in-person instruction. Los Angeles and San Diego, for example, said in July that their schools would open remotely only this fall due to the pandemic. Wow. I used to live in San Diego. Love that city. When it's ran by Republicans, it always does well. When it's ran by Democrats, oof, Lord, we've had that problem, I tell you. Many are struggling to pay utility bills and face shutoff. Oof, okay. Too bad. We got to get busy here. All of this stuff is coming to a head, I tell you. Coming to a head. Now, criticized at home, Kentucky prosecutor, who was seen as a rising star, the Kentucky AG, he said disputes over Breonna Taylor's case are focusing the spotlight again on the Kentucky Attorney General. What I don't understand is how these police officers were firing down the hall at someone who wasn't firing at them and who was running away, obviously in her night clothes. Amazing. So they put David Cameron between a rock and a hard place. And I think that he's going to get to the bottom of this. He's going to try to do the best that he can, but it's a bad situation. Depending on what report you read, the police officers fired 32 to 38 bullets, and they struck Miss Taylor 6 times. Now, the young man who fired a gun at them, they said that he wasn't hit. He wasn't hit by any bullets. But this young lady who was running down the hall, naked almost, got shot 6 times. It's horrible, horrible, horrible. Well, we're going to see what's going to happen there. Calling Mr. Cameron all kind of names because he's black. But he's doing the job. He's doing the job of the Kentucky AG. And it's going to be interesting to see what information he put in front of the grand jury. Because generally, when a prosecutor puts information in front of a grand jury, he always gets the indictment. Why does he get an indictment? Because he only has to present one side. He doesn't have to say, well, this guy is innocent because he was cross town. No, he said, this guy is guilty because we think he was such and I mean, they just skew the numbers. They skew the case. And in this particular case, guess what? It wasn't, they didn't get it. They didn't get the indictments. And that's what people are talking about. So people are angry about. And I understand their anger. I understand their frustration. I'm angry and frustrated myself because I just don't understand why these police officers were shooting down the hall at a person who was running away and not firing at them. I just don't get it. Their training was that poor. If their training was that poor, then they shouldn't have been out with guns executing no-knock warrants. That's the reality of it. And somebody has to pay, unfortunately, and it's going to be those police officers. And all this burning and looting and has nothing to do with Breonna Taylor. It has to do with thugs. It has to do with people who are out of control, who are bad people. This has nothing to do with good people. It has nothing to do with honoring Breonna's name at all. Coronavirus. I'm looking at the world news and Wall Street Journal. Man, that's something, I tell you. It is, it's something. It's a lot of people have died. A lot of people have died, and a lot of people are still dying from coronavirus. And I was just looking at a picture, and I'll show you online here, you guys out there on YouTube. That's a picture of these people in Madrid in a park, and each one of those little selfies are people who've died. So I guess Spain had a few tens of thousands of people who died from coronavirus, and they put out these little scarves to commemorate them. Amazing. But what we don't talk about here, because nobody's really focused on it, but we're going to focus on it a little later, is we're going to focus on the Chinese treatment of the Muslims in central China. That's going to be interesting. What's going on there is just unreal, how they're treating these people, how they're putting them in concentration camps and beating them and whatnot. Now, the Chinese leader, President Xi, he says that the harsh treatment of Xinjiang's minority is completely correct. So even though he acknowledges the treatment and the intensity of the treatment and the harshness of the treatment, he said it's correct. That's what he said, not me. And the rest of the world said, hey, this is harsh treatment. This is barbaric. It's not in the human right. These people's human rights are being violated. So what is the world doing? What is the UN doing besides sucking up to China? And it's amazing that the UN sucks up to China when they don't pay the UN's bill. America does. But President Trump has changed that. He said, WHO, okay, you went along with China in hiding this Chinese flu. We're pulling our funding. Boom. Gone. People, oh my God, the World Health Organization can't operate without the U.S. input. Well, you didn't think about that when you were cozying up to China and trying to hide that they were bringing the pandemic virus in here from Wuhan. You're going to say that then. The president, I tell you, he's done a great job. I could not imagine Barack Obama or Joe Biden what they would do in a similar situation. Because they didn't even want to say China virus. They didn't want to say that the disease or the virus originated in China. Well, we can't say that because it's racist. You had no problem saying that you had the African flu. Now, the Africa flu, right? Now, you have to understand something about that statement. Reason I start laughing is because Africa is a continent. Africa consists of 54 countries. So what countries did it come from? Are you trying to say that the whole continent is a S-hole continent? Are you trying to say that the whole continent is diseased? Is that what you're trying to say? Are you being racist? That's what they accused President Trump of, right? Right. If Trump had said that, everybody, oh my God, he's saying things that just that aren't true. We don't have a racist country. We have a racist bone in our body. We have some of the greatest countries in the world. Yeah, that's why people are jumping in wading pools, trying to paddle across the Straits of Gibraltar, because these countries are so great, so wonderful to live in. Yeah, people paddling literally in what we would consider wading pools across the Straits of Gibraltar with sharks trailing them. Seriously. Daniel Pearl, if that name sounds familiar, it should. He was a Wall Street Journal reporter who had his head cut off. He's American. And they've done several TV stories on. I think they did a movie on Daniel Pearl where they actually, his head, man, they cut the man's head off. Pulp Fiction, They cut the man's head off, man. Can you believe that? And that was almost 2 decades ago. It's hard to believe. So Pakistan's highest court is expected to decide as soon as this week whether a British national whose conviction for killing, it was a British national who was a Pakistani who killed Daniel Pearl. So the fate of Omar Sheikh, he was sentenced to death in 2002 for orchestrating the abduction and killing of Daniel Pearl. This has become a real litmus test for Pakistan's relationship with the U.S. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Pakistan's relationship with the U.S. Back when, the guy, he was the general that Bush told if he didn't let the United States forces into Pakistan, he would bomb them to dust. He told me, and the Pakistan president came on television and said that years later. And he capitulated, of course. Musharraf. And so we were trying to get bin Laden, and we were trying to get the Pakistanis to help us. And we needed interest into their country. And so Musharraf said, oh, no, we're Muslims, and we're going to protect the Muslims. And Musharraf said President Bush told him, we'll bomb you back to the Stone Age if you don't cooperate with us. And the look on Musharraf's face was like one of real sheer terror, because he knew Bush was not playing, right? I mean, man, when you start talking about shock and awe, we can bring it if we want to. We can end it all if we want to. Just like President Trump ended ISIS. When Obama was in, he was like, oh my God, the caliphate, it has 3/4 of the Middle East and they're just taking over. They can't be put back in the jar. Oh, please. Trump comes in and wipes them out. Boom. Didn't take him but 2 years. Boom. Trump came and said, what do we need to do to get rid of ISIS? Well, sir, if you turn us loose. And that's exactly what President Trump did. He turned the military loose and they cleaned up ISIS, took them out. But meanwhile, we're still talking about this British national who's going to be killed, probably beheaded, for killing Daniel Pearl. It's really sad because Pearl had a great family, had a great wife, and he had been reporting on jihadist circles in Pakistan. And after September 11th and after the attacks, when he disappeared in January, I think. Yeah, January. And he was caught They filmed his beheading, and they determined that it was a British guy, a British national who did it. Amazing. Amazing. You know, in the Wall Street Journal, and I'm just referencing the Journal today because it's paper I picked up. I get it every day. Some people are saying that Amy Coney Barrett is going to expect an anti-Catholic inquisition. Let me just say this about that. It's not going to happen. They're not going to come at her on religion this time. What did Dianne Feinstein and her famous comments about Amy was, you know, that she was wrapped in a dogma, her Catholic dogma. Oh man, Feinstein, she's a piece of work, and I'm glad that she's not heading up the Judiciary Committee. That would be interesting because you know Amy, she's cool. I mean, you saw her respond to Dianne Feinstein. She was just very cool. You know, she didn't get ruffled. She just said, "Hey, okay, if you want to go there, we can go there. We can go there, Miss Feinstein." So let's play what Dianne said, if we can.
The dogma lives loudly within you.
Wow, that's deep. The dogma lives loudly within you. Is that Star Wars? Is that a line from Star Wars? The dogma lives loudly within you. Do-do, do-do, do-do. Oh, man. Well, I tell you, even comedians are getting in on what's going on with Donald Trump. And they tickle me. They're like, Dave Chappelle just did a skit, and well, I'm looking forward to it. Looking real forward to it because he's telling the truth, and black people are listening. They listen more to Dave Chappelle than they do to me or Candace Owens. That's for sure. Even I listen to old Dave Chappelle. But I think Dave listened to me when we were talking about Jussie Smollett and how he lied about being beat up. I think I'll do that. You know, I'll claim that line. Said some guys jumped on me, man, when I was wearing my Build America Better hat and beat me up a little bit. You can't make this stuff up, you know. You can't make it up. But Dave Chappelle. So.
Once served as the literal punchline of a president's joke about how hard it is to run the country, that man won the presidency in a scene that left many Americans in a daze, including the comedians who tuck us in at night.
What happened last night? I went to bed early. I did have the strangest dream, though.
That dream continues, and tonight on The Beat, we have some of the best moments from comedians this year.
Well, we'll come back. We'll probably do that tomorrow. Have a good one, folks. We're off of Red State, and we're going to stick around for a minute, but just like Yoda. Yeah, it was like Yoda, huh? Oh, that's too funny. Too funny. It's like Yoda. Was like Yoda. I love doing those pieces because it's just so true. It's just so true. Too funny. Too funny. Too funny. Too funny. But Dave Chappelle. Let me look and see what Dave had to say. Was that Chris Rock? Yeah, it was Chris.
And then Chappelle recounts a contrast that ultimately became a skit that Saturday.
I've been on Noom for 4 months. I've lost 27 pounds, and I feel like I got my life back.
I've been on Noom for 4 months.
How some progressives were surprised by Trump's win.
And then everyone was just staring at the television. And then it was like sobbing as a Black American. How emotional do you get about the political landscape? There wasn't Obama in this cycle. You know, it was just a battle. You know, I almost said it. I shouldn't say it, but you know, it was like a battle of the whites. Yeah.
And that night, Chappelle walked out on stage, evincing the double consciousness that W.E.B. Du Bois outlined all the way back in 1903, living the experience of a minority and the consciousness of the white majority, what Du Bois called constantly looking at oneself through the eyes of others. Over a year later, his monologue passes the test of time because when you watch it now, you see it's not only about red and blue, it's about a society so divided we often don't see the same reality. And Chappelle didn't focus on the obvious attack on Trump. He began by roasting people who were so surprised America elected Trump.
The whites were furious. We've never seen anything like it. I haven't seen white people this mad since the OJ verdict. It was a split screen with white people on both sides. I watched a white riot in Portland, Oregon on television the other night. News said they did $1 million worth of damage. Every Black person was watching, they're like amateurs.
Then Chappelle turned to Trump's supporters.
You know, I didn't know that Donald Trump was going to win the election. I did suspect it. Seemed like Hillary was doing well in the polls, and yet I know the whites. America's done it. We've actually elected an internet troll as our president. And I saw how happy everybody was. These people who had been historically disenfranchised. And it made me feel hopeful, and it made me feel proud to be an American, and it made me very happy about the prospects of our country. So, in that spirit, I'm wishing Donald Trump luck, and I'm going to give him a chance, and we, the historically disenfranchised, demand that he give us one too.
And that's exactly what the president has done. We're going to do that tomorrow. I'm going to play that clip tomorrow, actually. So, hey, look, I'm going to sign off here and get busy. You guys enjoy. Have a great rest of your day. Join me tomorrow. Don't forget to subscribe. Tell other
Over the
folks to
last
subscribe.
2 months, I've lost about 20 pounds, which blows my mind.
Yeah, it blows mine too, baby. But look, we're going to do this again tomorrow. So check it out. Have your friends call in, subscribe below. And let's blow this thing up. Let's get this thing going. Take care. Have a good one. And thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you. Appreciate you. Let's see here. Boom, 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 boom. Let's see here. Nope. It's always interesting, man, to see what I got out here. Okay. Hello. Hello. Hello.
Hi, this is Brian Lee calling on behalf of thesolarproject.com. How are you today?